Hello, this is Paul Johnson, and I want to welcome you to the Optimistic American. Now, today we're going to have a discussion with the CEO and owner of a development real estate company named Via One, Marc Bonilla. But what we're going to really focus on is we're going to focus on the whole idea of negotiations. Now, I'm going to warn you beforehand that I have some differing views on negotiations. I've been involved in a lot of them. I was mayor of the city of Phoenix. I've had to negotiate very large deals with the building of the basketball arena and issues between the council and the legislature, and sometimes council and Congress. Here's what I found. There are some rules in negotiation that work, but they're a little bit counterintuitive. They're not necessarily what you might automatically believe. My rules are, number one, always tell the truth in a negotiation. Don't lie. Certainly don't tell somebody there's something that you want that you really don't want, because later that will be used against you in the negotiation. But the real key is having a long-term view and understanding that this isn't a short-term game, nor is this a game where there has to be a winner and loser. There's a lot on the internet that you can find about people who play a finite game and people who play the infinite game. The finite game is something like football. At the end of the game, there's a winner and a loser. At the end of the Super Bowl, there's a winner and a loser. There's a finite set of players. Those players are known. People know who they are. There are a finite set of rules. People know what the rules are. And at the end of the day, there's a winner and loser in that game. But an infinite game is one that you can play where there are both known and unknown players, where the rules aren't set, and where instead the whole idea is to keep playing the game. Now, when an infinite player in game theory meets a finite player, the infinite player almost always wins because they're looking for a long-term play instead of a short one. There's no doubt in my mind, most negotiations don't have to be a finite game. They can be an infinite game. That you can look for a way in which both sides can win. Both sides can walk away with something. But the single most important thing, and the reason that we're putting this on this show, is because it also deals with your ability to have agency. Learning how to negotiate is a skill set. You can learn how to be a better negotiator, but you need to have a sense of your own agency. You need to understand who you are and that the actions you take will determine your future. You know, leadership is really just about the ability to influence other people. Well, you can't influence other people unless you understand yourself first. And understanding yourself first means that you have to know the truth. You have to first be accountable to yourself. You've got to look for a sense of meaning and purpose. You've got to build strength over looking for safety. And you have to recognize that you belong to something bigger. In any event, I hope you'll enjoy this session on negotiations. It's not a long segment, but it's one that will give you a meaningful insight into how negotiations can work and a counterintuitive thought about how it is that it works best. Again, thanks for being here with me on the show. This is Paul Johnson. We're here to talk about hope. Marc, welcome.
Paul, thank you.
All right, so on negotiations, I know that you have negotiated multi-million-dollar deals. You've watched people who were buyers, people who were sellers. You've been the buyer and you've been the seller in negotiating. So what I want to do is I want to think about, for the average person who's trying to negotiate a deal, and especially in real estate, what are the key functions that you see to be important?
Luck.
Yeah, there is a lot of luck to it.
There's a lot of luck to it. I would say that philosophically, get to know the other person on the other side.
Okay.
Get to know what's important to them. You and I have been in several deals and situations where it was critically important to sit down at the table and understand what the other party wanted to accomplish. Because any good negotiation strings through an idea where there is a mutual satisfaction outcome
on both sides. Yeah, my dad
parties.
used to say, he said that, look, you can go to this car dealer to buy a car, and if you get done buying the car and you leave, and then you say to the car dealer, you say, I'd have paid you twice as much for it. He'll probably say back to you, I'd have taken half as much, and you both leave miserable, right? That negotiation everybody can win. I have found this over and again. Everyone can win in a negotiation. It's not a zero-sum game. But to do that, you have to start exactly with what you said. What is it that the other side is thinking? And without understanding what they're thinking, truly understanding it, your chances of being successful at meeting what their needs are very low.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that you just said. And the epiphany that I had is right, everything is negotiation with your wife, with your kids, with your friends, with yourself. And so, creating a negotiation means creating an optimistic mindset. And I can tell you that in negotiations, price and all of the other elements that the other person thinks they're negotiating on are far less important than you making them feel as though you are doing everything in your power to de-risk their concern.
Yeah, I think it's just exactly what you said, but it's trust.
It's 100% trust.
If you lose trust, there's no way to really reach an amicable deal with people.
And the reality is that once you remove all barriers to the psychological idea that I need to trust this person, then they're free with you. And nobody likes to run into sharp objects. And going into negotiation, like your dad very much lived by a whole different negotiating philosophy that was very much sharp object driven.
Yeah, but I can tell you when he was selling a cow or buying cows, he loved to negotiate. And in fact, all of them enjoyed negotiations. I find it to be enjoyable to be engaged in negotiation so long as I have trust with the person on the other side.
Yeah.
If you don't have trust, then it becomes transactional as opposed to relationship driven.
Yeah, and that's the second point that I was going to make, is that successful negotiations are rooted in understanding the psychological makeup of the person, because to find success in this business or any business or any relationship or any friendship is the idea that this isn't just one opportunity. This isn't just one engagement that we have to work with one another. It is really understanding, hey, we have an agreement, and I've got a fiduciary responsibility to take care of you on this deal, to make certain that I de-risk this deal for you, because we have a long history and we have a long roadmap in front of us of opportunities. And so for me, it's very, very important to within the first sort of stages and framework of establishing relationships, to really establish, number one, I don't care about the deal.
You packed so much in a sentence. I got to pull a couple of things out. So we started with make certain that you understand what the other side wants. One of the things that you just said that I think is really important is the long view. Yeah. And especially for new people coming into business or into negotiations or into real estate, it's very easy to take the short view. I just have to get this one deal done.
Yeah, it is really hard. It is really hard. And you touched on something that every young person, especially now, because the whole matrix is different. Talking to people over Zoom, it's so incredibly difficult to build a relationship with someone, to pick up on small little nuances that you can help that person feel more comfortable with.
Oh, and on this, I've never seen a deal done over email or text.
Yeah.
There's not one point hardly agreed to over email or text. A call is the minimum.
Yeah.
Zoom is the next step. But if you really want something to happen, meet them.
Yeah, and certainly technology hasn't helped that. Even the proposition of leaving a voicemail is unheard of. It's much easier now to not interface with people. It's much easier now to push an agenda if you're not looking in the whites of somebody's eyes.
Somebody said to me the other day, they go, Paul, I was calling you about a deal. I've been a friend of yours for 10 years, and you didn't text me back. And I said, oh, my God, dude, I get hundreds hundreds of texts a day from people who want to buy something from me or sell something to me. Why would you think that that was the appropriate way to talk to me about a deal?
Because everybody wants to feel as though they're the most important thing.
Then call me, right?
So that very much is rooted in the Paul Johnson narcissism, but I think
yeah, there's probably truth to that.
if you're available when you're available, and what I have got to in my age and the mistakes that I've made to get to where I am right now is everybody's important.
Huh?
A smart man once said to me that the most dangerous people out there are the invisible.
Yeah.
And so,
my dad, again, one of the things that I will never forget was we had a guy who came to the house and he knocked on the door. And when I got to the door, he was filthy. He also had a criminal record. And so I said, well, I'll be right back. And I closed the door and I went and got my dad. So my dad came out and he goes, why didn't you let Sam in? I said, well, Dad, he's filthy. So he lets him in. He says, Paul, go get him an iced tea. So I get him an iced tea and he leaves after he gets done getting what he needed from my dad. My dad said, son, what's the deal here? What's the deal? I said, Dad, the guy's filthy. He had a criminal record. He said, son, listen to me. If there's somebody south of you, then there must be somebody north of you. Yeah. They're just people on different levels of the horizon. Yeah. And treating people, this has been a definite lesson for me. Do not judge a book by its cover, right? Yeah. Treat everybody decent, and you will be amazed the opportunities that come from that.
I learned that a long time ago from some smart mentors that I had. But equally as important is, when you go into a negotiation or you go into an engagement, there should be this foundational truth and understanding that we both agree that I'm sitting here and you're sitting here because we both have complementary skill sets and we both have intrinsic value to move a project forward. I could tell you that for me, relationships index way higher than money, than the monetary
Culture
return.
Will eat strategy for breakfast.
It's true. And further to that, and this kind of ties into where we are right now, you have a lot of people right now that are scared. And they're scared in a way that they can't triangulate it in their mind because unemployment is still historically low. And they are still making an amount of money where they can pay their bills and they can live their life, but they are within this constant barrage of negativity. Mm-hmm. And it's almost become the currency. Mm-hmm. And things aren't that bad. Mm-hmm. And in fact, things are fantastic.
The mindset that you're talking about, I mean, by the way, is something you don't know. Just the fact that we use the name Optimistic American, I get, I would say hate mail, but I don't think anybody sends mail anymore. Hate emails to me that they're just unbelievable. They're just mad about the word being optimistic. They can't fathom that anyone would be optimistic. But the growth mindset is very different than a fixed mindset.
For sure.
A fixed mindset believes this is it. This is all we're going to have. And I know that it's going to be all that we're going to have, and you play the game from that standpoint. A growth mindset not only believes there's going to be an abundance, that there will be more, but more importantly, they're willing to grow. So when you think about the growth mindset will acknowledge, I'm going to grow in this deal. I'm going to learn in this deal. I don't know everything in this deal. Whereas a fixed mindset says, I already know everything that I need to know, and there's nothing you can teach me. And that fixed mindset, it is inevitable in the right negotiation that matters. They're not going to be as successful as they otherwise might.
Yeah, and for me, I've got to a place where I've worked hard enough and made enough mistakes that I'm sitting on a pile of mistakes and failures and everything else because it's critical. making
PhD in the hard knocks of business administration.
it is critical to be able to go through that experience of running into the sharp objects to realize that we are all in the people business. And not just so far as you and I being friends with one another, it's you coming to me and understanding that I am a knowledge leader and I am going to help fix something that is concerning you on how to reprogram this deal, because you're having a hard time understanding the data points, and you're having a hard time connecting these. And so for me, I very much think about what is my value within the triangulation of this deal, and where can I come in and fix somebody else's issues.
Yeah, and your role changes, right? When you act as a developer, you have a different headset on than if you're the broker. As a broker, I've watched you beat on me as the buyer or the seller, and at the same time beat on the other person on the other side of the edge, trying to move us both closer to a center where a deal could be made.
Yeah, and it is the same, but it's different. The brokerage mindset is very transactional, and the very abstract. I mean, that's called production, and if you're not producing and all you're doing is building relationships, that's great, but that's not putting food on the table. The long view is this very awakening idea when you get to a place where you realize that, gosh, let's really understand and diagnose how we can amplify value. And as a developer, I have found a sweet spot relative to my personality and relative to what I've learned through the political channels, and building those relationships to really understand from the city's perspective what's most important to them, and a regulatory standpoint, and how a shift in consumer behavior and human behavior after the pandemic is beginning to influence the cities. And so I have conversations probably weekly with different governmental officials at the state level, talking about land planning and talk about zoning, because again, this genesis that we're going through right now is looking at the swath of properties that we have and how can we truly identify what the highest and best use is for all of those properties.
Let's go back to negotiation. So one of the things that I think is important, I'd love your input on it, is one of the things that I've learned is don't lie, right? First, it's important to disclose. If I know there are problems in the deal, I like to put those right up front, right? Where I've told them, where they're not going to discover it, because one, if those things were going to keep them from doing a deal, why do I want to go tie something up for a couple of months just to have them find it out and then lose it? And two, once I've been truthful with them, it actually increases the chance that I'll get to a closure, because there's a sense of trust between us. If I didn't tell them and they find it out, they always believe, well, what else didn't you disclose, right? But just as important, it's being truthful about what you want. So as an example, I might want time, speed, how quick you're going to close. I might want, or on the reverse side, how much time can I get? I may want a higher price or a lower price. And then I also might want a certain set of warranties, all right, a certain set of guarantees that I get from the buyer that may last past the contract. But if I tell them, I say, really my biggest issue is price, but I tell them that my biggest issue is timing, and they come back and say, oh, okay, well, I'll give you the timing, but here's the price that I need. Yeah. You start to get boxed in.
For sure. And that is the concomitant expectation as an authority. You want to go in and you want to understand, number one, what's the objective and what's most important to you. And so, yeah, for me, that is the first thing that I do. And it's critically important within the locus of my control to be able to set expectations properly. And sometimes setting those expectations means that these expectations relative to timing, asset value, whatever it may be, zoning, are all going to change. Undoubtedly, they're going to change. But again, what I'm going to do is to make certain that I am insulating you to the best ability possible, because I have the experience to do it, and you don't. And so, yeah, that trust element, until you get to that trust element, you don't have negotiation. What you have is one person looking at the other person in a very skeptical manner and questioning everything that they say.
All right. So I'd like your input on this. So you start with making certain that you get to know what the other person wants. You disclose the problems that you have. You talk about the things that are going to be important to you. I'm a believer that you should always make the first offer as the buyer or the seller. All right. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that you should let the other person make the offer first?
Yeah, it just depends. Right? You have to tease out. Every deal is different, and so you have to tease out what it is that is important to the other party and what it is that is important to you. And so, for me, I've got a pretty limited capacity with my time, and I'm spread very thin. I've got a brokerage division. I've got my own projects going on. And then we have development agreements that we have to satisfy our clients. And so, part of that is making sure that I am addressing all of the relationships that we have, and everybody is comfortable with respect to where we're at in the project or the delivery of a project, making sure that my guys are understanding what their roles and responsibilities are. I could tell you that before every project we do, we have what's called a accountability to success, and everybody has their own certain accountability for us to be able to execute on those outcomes. And so it eliminates the need for me to have to come in and reprimand or to discuss with somebody why you didn't fulfill your obligations. And so your obligation to success ultimately is your piece in the end to get us to victory. And so once you do that, everybody has an agency to the deal, and everybody has a connection to the deal, to the upside or to the downside. But again, for me, where I find a higher level success is to really go in and be brutally honest with people. I can't do it any other way. And sometimes I have to tell people what they don't want to hear. And oftentimes I prefer that. I don't want to tell people that I'm going to be able to deliver on some unrealistic expectation of where the market was a year ago or a year and a half ago, or that we're going to be able to go into the city and get some kind of governmental approval for something that I've seen.
So the reason I will make an offer first, this is kind of my logic. So in every negotiation, there's not a price, there's a range of prices, right? So if I were to look at things as a multiple or a square footage price or just a cash price, I'll just use a multiple. If I think that my business trades anywhere between $4 and $8, right? And that's possible, right? It could trade anywhere in terms of a 4 multiple or an 8 multiple, of a multiple of revenue on an annualized basis. And I go, look, I'm not going to take anything less than 7. But I don't want to tell them 7 because I know that they're going to then want to go down from that. But they may be looking at it saying, well, I don't want to pay anything more than 4, right? I always like to start by saying, look, for me, if I really know I'm not going to go below 7, to tell them, look, I think that the value of this business is between 7 and 9. That's what I think the value is. And I think I'm going to be able to get something close to 9, right? And now that's the first offer. Now, what that does psychologically to the other side, they may just say, we're not a player at that. Well, my answer is, if you're really not a player even at the 7, it's probably best we stop the discussion and figure out something else that we can do, because I know that's really my bottom line price.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if by starting at that price, sometimes if they really were at 4, they move to 5 or 6. right? And the reverse is true also. If I let them go first and they said, well, $4 is the most I would pay for it, all of a sudden I'm feeling pressure to come down from the 7, right? So for me, making that first offer is important. Now you were talking about something else in there that I thought was really important, which is finding alignment. What I try to do in every deal is I look at 3 things. I look at number 1, where are we aligned? Where's the alignment where both of us agree?
Yeah.
Then I look at where are we opposites from one another? And then the third thing I do is to say, now what's everyone's priorities? And I can't get that without having spent time to ask them questions. And in any deal, there are enough complexities that there can be a lot of priorities that fit over the other one, meaning they may pay you a higher price if they know they can get through the city. They may pay you a higher price if they know that there's a potential for them to be able to pull a piece off of your business that's important to you.
You have to be able to parse out value because there's so many different elements that go into a transaction, and so many elements that you can index value off of. But that was the stream of consciousness that I was talking about. You have to have a collective stream of consciousness with anyone to have successful negotiations. And so your strategy that you're talking about is more sort of on the face, sort of a retail type of transaction for the deals that I do. It's more going in and understanding that I have a value that you don't have. I've got relationships that you don't have. I have experience that will make certain that I am guiding you down a path that you wouldn't otherwise know is the proper path to go down. And I've been able to build really strong relationships within the city that, most projects that I do, the pre-development work and through those relationships, that human capital that we always talk about, that's the most important thing. So it's
know
it's
yourself.
Know yourself and know really what you can do. I learned a long time ago that being honest in a deal, as opposed to just acquiescing and saying, yes, I can do it, is way more important. The quality of value that you can add, and not just to the deal, but to the relationship long term, you want to make yourself invaluable. And that's where I have found real success, Paul. And I think that you know that. For me, I've got a handful of clients that are indefatigably loyal to me. And that is by design, because I can't be in a situation where I am taking more from the deal than they are. It's just something.
Right. So let's sum this up. And we'll put the sum list together that we can put up on your website and on my website. But the very first issue is understand the other side. What are their needs? Question them about what it is that's important to them, what it is that matters. Build trust. You have to build trust in the relationship. The second thing is disclose what you think your problems are, your challenges are. Just give those to them up front. It's going to save you a lot of time, and it's also going to save you your reputation. For me, this is a question mark. It's always be honest with what you want, what your priority is in this particular deal, whether it's time or deal points or money. Make certain that you're really honest about what that is. To do that, you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself what it is that's important to you. I have lots of people in deals who try to take my time. You sell your time. My time's I can't. It's just I don't have a lot of time to sell. Now I used to do that a lot inside of deals, but increasingly I need to be able to move on, and so I need to know that whatever it is that I'm structuring, it isn't about the time that I'm going to have to put into it. It's whether or not on its face they see the deal as making sense. And then after that, it becomes, making certain that you've looked at where you have alignment, where you have disagreement, and who has what priorities. And once you begin to look at that structure, your chance of being able to put that together, your odds go dramatically up. Anything you want to add to that list?
Yeah, everybody has the same allocation of time in one day, Paul, and everybody is busy, and I think that having respect for everyone's time, going back to your north and south notion, is something I very much believe in principle. But I don't look at it like that. I really don't. What I do is I am very, very critical, and I am very selective on where I put my time. And the projects that I do decide to take on, I'm honest with respect to how much time that project needs to properly program, and whether or not I have somebody on the other side who respects my authority and is going to listen. Because having a partner on the other side that's closed off is not creative.
Yeah. Now, to me, I think we're saying the same things. The creation of a partnership is very different than the creation of a purchase or a sale, right? And if you're going into a partnership, then it's about being honest with how much time I have to be able to commit to the deal. But oftentimes people want to buy something from me, but they're really looking for a partnership. They want me to go fix all the problems. And if I thought that I had the time to do it, there was a period of time in my life where I said, yeah, that's what I'll go do. But it's not good or bad. It's just I saw it as, I see a value in me being able to help this deal get done. Yeah. But when you know that you can't, entering into that partnership just to get the check, that's not right either.
Yeah, and that's the stream of consciousness that one needs to have insofar as being honest with themselves is also understanding that there is a developmental process as you work your way into whatever it is that you do. We're talking about commercial real estate here. I could tell you that my patience and how I influenced and how I analyzed deals when I was a broker and I needed to produce was much different than now. Now I very much look at transactions or projects in a very forensic basis within a backdrop of me understanding what a respective city wants, what's important for that community, so on and so forth. But that's taken a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's taken a lot of time. And you can't have a blanket approach within the city because what Mesa wants versus what Goodyear wants is completely different. And so, again, being a thought leader, is very much at the root of what I do in development. That's what I love about it, because understanding how you could be a part of changing the landscape, particularly now in the Valley. Within the next 10 years, the economic opportunity profile, I can't think of another state that is going to be able to.
Warren Buffett said to me something once. How old are you now, Mark? 40?
Yeah. 46.
I just wanted to pull that out. You're 46. Yeah,
that.
you're older than I was when you met me. But I think I was about 34, 35 years old. And I just left the mayor's office and I was going to go into business. And I was worried about all these economic issues. I was worried about what was going on in the economy, whether it was going to go right or going to go wrong. And I will never forget, I had this chance to just get in a small conversation with Warren Buffett in which he said to me, Paul, he said, you live in the United States of America. He said, believe me on this. He said, there is more opportunity here in a good or bad economy than you could ever know what to do with in your lifetime. Yeah. And then he said, and you live in Arizona. He said, that's going to be at the top of the game from a national standpoint.
Yeah.
But it was, he was taking this question that I was asking about fret and worry and should I be investing or what should I be doing? And he turned it into a no, believe.
Yeah.
You have to believe. And that becomes such an important part of finding success. At the end of the day, I'm not a believer in being an optimist. I'm optimistic. when you're optimistic, you recognize problems. You understand that
Yep.
there are challenges. But the people who are going to solve the problems that we have today are the people who believe that you can.
For sure.
And that's the truth in business as well.
Yeah, blind optimism is not a notion or theory that I could buy into. But what he was telling you is that he is so confident within his ability to control the dynamic that stop being insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got to a place in my business that especially now, we are suffering from an increasingly insecure market.
Mm-hmm.
And you have folks that I interact with on a daily basis that have portfolios that have real issues, and they made some real mistakes, and they need somebody to come in and help them fix that. Or they went into projects that a year ago would have worked, but today they're not going to work for a myriad of different reasons. So I can tell you that I'm seeing more opportunities now than I saw a year ago. And a lot of those opportunities are just people coming to me to diagnose and help. It's not coming to me for the for the benefit of me bringing money into the deal, into a capital stack. It's truly me coming in with a knowledge capital.
Okay,
That
we'll deal with opportunities. Just because we've kind of reached the end of our time here, we'll deal with opportunities in another show. But if you would you give your email address so that people, if they wanted to contact you, or if we put up this list of items, where they might go to find it?
My email address is mark@via1cre.com, and our website is www.via1cre.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. So again, this is Paul Johnson with The Optimistic American. This is the series on the mindset of a creator. I was here with Marc Bonilla. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for joining The Optimistic American Show. Now help us grow by subscribing to our channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like and a comment. There is so much more that we have planned. We can't wait for you to embark upon this journey with us.